Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scale Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for you, who is David from the YouTube channel David Thomas. So, how are you, David? Welcome to the podcast.
Very well, Melos. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's great. So, over here on my screen, I do have your YouTube channel opened, and if I go to the oldest video, it's about 5 years ago. And interestingly enough, it's not anything related with architecture, which is what your main content right now is. So, can you just kind of run us through a breakdown of why you started content creation and how did that transition into architecture content?
Of course. So, like you said, I started a good 5 years ago. I've been on the platform for a while now. It's slowly growing every day, which is great. It's good to see the audience kind of tracking along as I've changed trajectories. Basically, it started a long time ago when I used to have an actual e-commerce brand. I owned a watch company. The company did pretty well. It ended up wrapping up about 4 or 5 years ago now, pretty much just about the same time I started the channel. For
Mm-hmm.
me, it was about I was paying a lot of people a lot of money to be the content creators, to be the influencers, to be, the salespeople of the product and of the company. And I was always in the background. I was a nobody. I like to be in the shadows. I'm not a very social kind of guy. I like to be
Mm-hmm.
introverted, to say the least. So jumping onto YouTube was a hard decision for me to make, but it was something for me to be able to kind of promote my own businesses, promote my own companies, my brand. So yeah, I jumped on YouTube. I started with general content, tech, just like everybody else, a little bit of fitness as well. So I started some fitness videos, made a few of them in the gym, decided, you know what, I love fitness, but I hate making fitness videos. It's just not for me. So I
Yeah.
scrapped that pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
I then dove into tech videos for a very long time. As an architect, tech is your world. You know so much about tech. You're always evolving and learning new skills. So I was up to date with the latest tech at all times. So I put some videos together and went, let's see how it goes. Let's see what happens. Eventually, it grew a little bit. It stagnated probably about a year in, and that's when the tech videos started to drop off slowly and the architecture videos started to come into play. So obviously, as a qualified architect, this is my life. I do architecture all day, every
Mm-hmm.
day, from sunrise to sundown. So it was really about making sure that I could kind of find a way to keep my own skills, my own knowledge up in the industry when I'm completely consumed by architecture in the life as well. So it worked out really well. And yeah, like I said, the channel's going well so far.
Mm. And do you think the reason why the architecture videos started doing better than the tech videos is just because there's so much room for content creation in the architecture space?
Yeah,
And it
there's not
kind of
a,
it was like a gap that you filled basically.
I believe so. There wasn't a lot of us, and there still isn't a lot of us in the architecture space. Like you could name a handful on
Mm.
basically one hand. Um, I think they started doing very well because it was integrated with the tech. So a lot of my architecture videos early on started as Revit compared to ArchiCAD, how does
Mm.
Revit compare on this laptop? Trying to keep that original audience I had. And
Mm-hmm.
like you say, there's not many people in the space. So it's great to have a few more people jump on board. And architecture is a young industry. The tech side of things, most of the followers are extremely young, 18 to 24, and every single day there's more people kind of entering that age group and
Yes,
joining us on the community.
100%.
Mm.
Um, can you take us a little bit back to when you actually started your own e-commerce brand, which was like a watch brand?
Yep.
How do you think the skills that you learned from like doing e-commerce and kind of the business skills translated to what you do right now for your most of working hours in architecture?
Well, I guess I started the e-commerce brand back when I was doing my master's at university.
Mhm.
I traveled Europe. I wanted to buy a watch in every country. I was like, this is a great idea, We'll find some
Yeah, I
great
love watches
watches.
as well, by the way.
Yeah, no, they're stunning. They're absolutely stunning timepieces. But I found out quickly that watches are expensive and you want one good watch and it costs you more than it would to start a company. So when I came back to Australia, I went, stuff it. I know the skills in architecture. I know how to render. I know how to design. I know how to use every app under the sun and every program under the sun. So I kind of dove into e-commerce and marketing. Um, it didn't really help me at all during university. It got me a lot of recognition from the tutors and my peers because they went, "This is
Mhm,
something completely different," which is great.
mhm.
But it also did land me my first job because it was a highlight on my resume. It was something different. So I was
That's
able to
great.
enter the architecture space and they were like, "We love it. You're not the standard run of the mill. You're taking some initiative and you're moving forward." So I think that helped me early on for sure.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think it's very rare to find people that follow the unconventional path in the architecture
Mm.
space. And right now, you're between content creation and you also have your own architecture practice, right?
I don't own the practice. I'm an associate in the practice.
Oh, okay, that's great. And how do you actually find the time to balance it out, or there's just no balance? You just pretty much work all day long.
No, I do work all day long, but I also have a loving and very supportive wife that understands that I work very hard and I'm very passionate at what I do. So
Hmm.
she's the backbone of all of this. She makes sure that I can facilitate everything that I want to do, which is incredible. To
Hmm.
be honest, I work from sun up to sundown. I'd get up at 5 a.m. every morning, go to the gym, come home, get ready for work, in the office till about 5, 6 o'clock, come home at this computer till 9, 10 o'clock every night. And it's on repeat 7 days a week.
How do you feel about that kind of lifestyle? Because I do experience that as well. I do not wake up as early. I wake up at 6, but then it's just about kind of the same hours because I'm like in the office until like 11 or something like that.
Hmm.
But I hear a lot of people talk about burnout, and to me, it's something that I don't really relate that much.
Hmm.
What do you think about this aspect, and is this something that you have experienced?
I think it's very true and it's very present, especially in the architecture industry. Like throughout university, there's so many memes online about architecture students not sleeping ever, and that's year one. You don't sleep at all, and I guess you kind of get into that routine as an architecture student, and that helps in life. But burnout's real, and it's important for all of us to take care of ourselves, both in our mental health, our physical health, and everything in between. If we don't want to burn out, we need to
Mhm.
understand that taking a break is okay. If you want to stop and you need to stop, just do it. Don't keep pushing yourself to the absolute brink because fatigue and burnout happens to all of us. I don't
Mhm.
know, the lifestyle's normal to me now. This is what I've done for so long. And I think for us, you especially, I can understand we're still quite young. We have the ability, we have the dedication, we have the drive, we have the freedom. You don't get that later in life. Um, so utilize it
Yeah,
now, is my opinion.
100%. I definitely agree with you on that one. And the other thing is, as architects, we tend to always compare ourselves to our peers, especially in university and stuff. And there's a lot of like the feeling of being left behind. And some people kind of take that negatively, but I think that that should be kind of as a fuel to push even further. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the other thing that I'm really curious about is how has content creation impacted your career, and what have been the benefits and maybe even the bad side of things.
Uh, so let's start with the bad side of things. I guess the bad side of things is you get a lot of recognition, you get a bit of, uh, I don't know, too much attention sometimes.
Hmm.
And you have to dedicate enough hours to content creation, enough hours to social media to be able to continue growing on the platform. And in your career, you need to succeed, you need to excel. That takes, to be honest, way more time and energy to be able to excel in a formal setting. So it's
Hmm.
trying to balance that is the hardest thing. Um, it definitely being able to be a content creator, being able to understand photography, videography, all of that was kind of learned in the e-commerce brand and the watch manufacturing, and then evolved into YouTube. Definitely helped in the career because I was able to use those skills to kind of leverage my next promotion, my next pay rise. So I started as a grad. Everybody does. You start on cents on the dollar. You're working 24/7 for nothing, but you have to prove your worth to the company. You have to prove that you actually have some initiative, some skills. So I used all my knowledge in IT to get a pay rise to just take on all of the IT in the actual company. And then I use content creation to take over marketing, the social media. And eventually that snowballed to a position that I run most of the things in the company and I'm the head architect there. So you have to use all of your skills to be a good architect, but you also have to find the time to use all those
Mhm.
skills, which is a challenge.
100%. One thing that I've also noticed with content creation is the architecture space, and something that I've also dealt with. I'm not sure if you have, is that sometimes people or other architects kind of look down on you for also being a content creator, and sometimes you're not taken as seriously. Have you had that happen to you?
Yeah, but I think that also comes with age. As a young architect, I'm 29, I'm going to turn 30 next year. So I'm still relatively young when you talk about architects. Architects are,
Mhm.
50, 60 in their prime. They know everything at that age and they're some of the best architects they can be. So
Mhm.
I've had that stigma my whole life. I've pushed companies at 18. I've started 3 companies by the age of 21. So everybody always went, you're too young, you don't know what you're doing, and you constantly get that backlash. I think you have to break the stigma. You have to fight back.
100%.
You have to go, I know what I'm doing. And if I don't, I know enough people to help me along the way.
And maybe not even say that out loud. Maybe just believe that, and then just let the work actually be the proof
Absolutely.
of the good doing that you're actually producing. But how do you actually feel about the content creation in the architecture space right now? And I know that there's a lot of like um, insecurity in terms of being able to entertain the viewers as well as
Mm,
educate them at the same time, and the retention on architecture videos is usually quite low,
yeah,
and that's just because it's just not, it's hard to make it entertaining, right? It's mostly educational. How do you deal with that as a creator?
I don't. To be honest, I don't. I stopped focusing on it a long time ago. It ruins your
Uh,
mental health. Like, I used to look at the retention graphs and they'd start at 100% and in 10 seconds they'd be at 40, 50, and before you know it, they're at 30% retention. So I found it's not worth trying to
mhm,
fish for those 10-second grabs, you know? Um,
mhm,
if you go through my channel, there's plenty of videos that attempted it. I tried that, the 30-second hook, get the audience, TikTok style videos. It's just
mhm.
not the right content for the space. Like, as architects, as creatives, as designers, our work takes a very, very long time to produce, and our ideas come from years of experience. It's not something that you can, you know, smash together and
Match up. Yeah.
yeah, it's not the right way to do it, I believe. And I'm happy to lose those viewers who are looking for a 10-second thrill of endorphins. Like, that's not my
Mhm,
channel. And I don't think
mhm.
architecture will ever be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so you just have to be ready to give that up in exchange for maybe more
Yeah,
of like a loyal fan base
I
in
think
that
that's it.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so I do know that one of your biggest videos is ArchiCAD versus Revit, and um, I know it's like a 20-minute video, but what would you say is the short answer to that question? Because a lot of people that are architecture students right now or young architects ask me this in the comments all of the time.
Look, it's a hard question to answer, hence why it's 20 minutes long. And I think it depends where you live in the world. If you
Hmm.
live in Europe, Europe is dominated by ArchiCAD. Like, Graphisoft is based in Europe, so they have a very strong pool. Revit is starting to take over all of London and England and UK, and they're starting to take over all of America and Australia. So my answer is look up your firms that you want to work for, find out the software they use, and then learn it. Don't
Hmm.
worry about what anybody else is doing.
100%. I definitely agree. I've asked this question to a few other architects, and it's basically the same answer. Just
Mm,
look at where you want to work and just go with it. But you
yeah.
also have a lot of information regarding the tools that you use, like the iPad Pro, different laptops, and how does that impact the quality of work that you produce?
I think it has more of an impact on the work that you do than I do. Like, high quality renders demand really high quality computers, whereas high quality architecture is about ideas. It's about concepts. It's about understanding your client. So
Mm.
they're all tools. You don't need them. You don't need a single one. You can still draw on paper, but it will take you longer. You'll make less money. You'll do less jobs. You'll be less experienced. So for
Mm.
me, the iPad is a quick way to basically get ideas down. The computers are a great way to speed up the workflow and just get things done quicker. For
Mhm.
you, I understand if you smash that render button, hit go, it's the difference between 10 minutes and 40 hours with some computers. So it's all it
Yeah, I
is.
mean, at the same time, I do like with 95% of the software is that kind of thing. But at the same time, right now, like with real time rendering, or at least with Enscape,
Mm,
you really don't need a super expensive computer to get started because they're so not heavy and they're not even
mhm.
recognized as real like professional 3D rendering tools. But the
Yeah.
truth is, you can really get some very good visuals from that. I myself completed over 100 rendering projects in a $500 computer, but
Mm,
it didn't work as well as the computer that I have now.
yeah.
But for the position that most architecture students are in, or at least the way that me and other students at my university, where you have a lot of financial kind of limitations,
Mm,
I think that having a good computer is one of the best investments, especially through architecture years. So,
yeah.
I always get the questions on, do you have any laptop recommendations, which you already did a video on. So that's very very important. And one other thing that ties up into this is, do you feel like there's a disconnect between what architects are using right now and how fast the software and hardware are actually moving towards AI? Because there's this kind of um, limitation in, or kind of uh, scared of moving forward with new technology, especially
Mhm.
in our space, because there's not much room for experiment. So if you're in a project, there's no going back after it's built, right? So what do you think of the new technologies that are coming through right now?
I think they'll be adopted by the younger generation and forced upon the older generation and the
Mm,
preceding architects because it's
mm,
always the younger generation that brings it in. Eventually, once you progress in your career, you stop focusing your time and energy to learning this. Whereas at university, you're completely wrapped around it. All your peers are talking about Discord and Midjourney and every single way under the sun. Whereas once you're in practice, you got no idea until they come to you and go, "Hey, have you heard about this?" And they're the
mm-hmm.
ones that actually push it onto us. I think it's way too early in the game to actually understand how it's going to play a part in architecture. I know it already does. Using it for
Mm-hmm.
conceptual ideas is phenomenal. You can smash out so many ideas so quickly and just get your own mind thinking. But at least here in Australia, I know that architecture is a very fine juggling act between your creative side and your planning and political side. You have to have an understanding of all the codes, the regulations, the building requirements, the engineering, and everything in between to be able to produce this building. And even if you do, the neighbor might hate it and you have to do something completely different. So AI will never have that. Well, I won't say never, but in the foreseeable future, won't have that intellect. But when it
Yeah.
does, it's a whole different ballgame. I think architects will be almost redundant, unfortunately.
Mm. You mentioned about like the regulations in Australia, and I've had, I think, two architects previously in the podcast that were from Australia, and to me it just sounds there's so many rules and steps you have to take in order to become an architect over there. So can you
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about what it's like to be an architect in the architecture industry in Australia?
sure. So Australia is obviously a huge place, divided into many states, and each individual state has different regulations of how to register for an architect. So my experience here in Western Australia might be very different to the guys I've spoken to before. But basically, to be a registered architect here, it's a protective title. So you can't go and call yourself an architect unless you've done everything and got a tick and paid
I've
all your
heard about
fees.
that.
And
Like if
yes,
if you're building designer, you cannot call yourself like
correct.
even in like a title of an article or something like that.
Nah. And even if somebody publishes it, you have to make a retraction statement. It's a whole thing. But understandably, because they want to protect the architect title, they want to protect the community. They don't want them to go to anybody off the street and go, this is an architect, and they have no idea what they're
Mhm.
doing. So I get both sides of the coin. For us here, it's a long road. 3 years undergraduate degree, 2 years master's degree, minimum of 2 years logbook servicing as a full-time employee in an architectural practice. And then you have to do an online test and you have to do an in-person interview to actually understand if you know anything. That interview is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. The first time, full disclosure, I failed. I dove in, I
Mhm.
did it as soon as I possibly could. I just tried to smash it out. I was one of the youngest to eventually pass still, but I was just overconfident and just try to go for it. And you've got these two architects in their mid 50s who know
Uh,
everything about anything, and
I can already
they're hounding
imagine
you.
what they look like, like the typical
Ah,
50-year-old architects. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're
Yeah, I
very
get that.
good. They're very good, but they're scary. As a young architect, they're scary to sit in front of and tell your story.
Mhm. Yeah, I think architecture is a very judgmental
Mm,
space, and I think a lot of architects care more about what their peers think rather than what the clients and the people that actually experience the architecture think. So
yeah.
that's very interesting. But uh, do you think that this very the protection of the architecture title and kind of having a lot of pride into being an architect and kind of making it this huge glamorous thing is um, is required, or do you think that's kind of um, it's kind of trying to make it somehow more important than it actually is?
Difficult question to answer. So, generally, yes, I think it's required to a certain degree. I believe that people should be held accountable for their actions, their knowledge, and as a layperson who has no idea about architecture, you should have the confidence to go to the person and go, I'm confident to give this person my money and they will give
Hmm.
me the best results they can.
Hmm.
You don't want to be scammed in that scenario. So it's a layer of protection. But at the same
Because,
time,
yeah, I was trying to say because it also makes a bit sense because as like someone who doesn't have any connection with the architecture space, it's hard to judge on who's a good architect and who's not if they don't have
correct,
like all of that certifications and all of that, right?
correct. And I think at the same time, there's some incredible building designers out there. There's some incredible people who have no qualifications and just experience. They've grown up in the industry. They know exactly what they're doing, but they never went to university. They never practiced under an architect. They can't call
Mm-hmm.
themselves that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a place for both. And if they work together, they can really create some amazing things as long as the community is aware of what they're going into and that people aren't being lied to. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's my roundabout way of saying yes and no.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. But at the same time, do you feel like university prepares you fully to get into the architecture industry
No,
and start working?
nah, not at all. I was, yeah, rude shock. When you leave university, you're high and mighty. You go, I've got a master's degree in architecture. I know what I'm doing. And you get out into the real world and you barely know how to design a toilet. You don't know how things work. And I think it's come down to experience, time, labor, getting more people into the workforce quicker. Because in
Mhm.
Australia, architecture used to be a pretty intensive course where not only would you learn the actual theory, but you'd go out on site, you'd lay bricks, you'd pour concrete, you'd know how to physically do these things. And that's something that is personally so sad to see leave the industry because I would have loved to have done that. Even though
Mhm.
it's brutal, it's hard work, and everybody on the site is incredible for what they do, you need to learn those skills. As an architect,
Mhm.
you need to know how bricks go together. You need to know they're heavy. You need to know that concrete can collapse. Like,
Yeah. And the
it's,
thing is, I'm not sure if this is actually true or not, but I think even the name architect come from like ancient Greek language and it basically means head construction worker in a sense.
mm,
So that's what it translates to. So I definitely understand the need to actually be on site and deal with all that stuff. But one thing that I want to stop on is that everyone that I ask the same question about does university actually prepare you to be an architect has the same answer, which is no.
Yeah.
But what do you think really is the alternative if university doesn't offer what you need to become an architect?
I think here in Australia, at least, and I could be wrong because they change the laws all the time, but you used to be able to go down the architect path through typical learning, which is university, or you used to be able to do 7 years work experience with at least 2 years under an architect.
Mhm.
So as a high school student going straight out, you could have gone to university, done your 5 years and then 2 years in work, or you could have spent those same 7 years working in practice.
I definitely choose the second one, at least me.
Yeah, I look, to be honest, I didn't know that was an option at the time, and I only
Mhm.
learnt it 5 years in. It was way too late to change a course. But I
Mhm.
think some of the people that I know who've done that 7 year training course are so experienced. Once they've graduated and completed architects, they just know so much. They've been in the industry for 7 years. They don't
The-
they don't know the fluff, but
yeah,
they know the basics and the
it's
core
almost like
work.
having a mentor, right? That's basically having a
Exactly.
mentor that guides you through everything you need. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely like. I didn't know that there was this option over there,
Mm.
and I'm pretty sure it's not in most of other countries because it definitely feels much more reliant. But
Mm.
maybe if they made it more, if they made it more prominent, universities wouldn't have as much people joining. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I wanted to stop a little bit on another alternative, which is coming up a lot in these past few years, which is e-learning. How
Mhm.
do you think that the educational content that we do online helps architects or like young architects as of now?
I think it helps massively. University is such a self-driven discipline. You have to go in and want to learn. Everybody goes to university to learn, so I kind of get it, but you have to know how to learn and you have to want to learn. Sometimes, and most of the time, people don't respond to how lecturers are talking. So doing it at your own pace, finding people that you like. It doesn't matter if you have the same content with 10 different creators, everybody's going to like somebody else a little bit more.
Mhm.
It might be how they talk, how they present, the pretty pictures on the screen, but they'll like somebody more. And if they like them, they'll engage, they'll learn more. So I think e-learning is a critical part. It's not the whole picture, but it's a little bit of the picture to just keep your skills up to date and make sure you're really enjoying what you're doing.
Mm. Yeah, and do you think that I'm sure that e-learning cannot completely replace the maybe traditional path, but do you think that if someone is very self-driven and knows what they want to do, can completely start their career or maybe even like a freelancing side hustle just through um, the content that is free online?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some caveats around that. Obviously, you probably couldn't be a doctor and you couldn't be a lawyer around
Yeah.
those sorts of e-learning exercises, but I
Mhm.
think there's enough information online, be it free, be it paid, anything in between, that you can learn the core, get into the space, and figure out the rest.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm just noticing that in your channel right now, you don't actually have anything that you sell, like a course or anything, right?
No.
And so what was kind of your main motivator to doing all this for free? Was it selfless reasons, basically just to help people out?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I think there's a vast time commitment to doing a paid course.
Hmm.
So the last
Hmm.
few months, I've done a full ArchiCAD course, and I'm going through a Twin Motion course as we speak, and I'm doing it 100% free. Mainly and honestly, because I don't have the time to commit to a full paid course. I don't have the ability to be able to commit so much of my time and resources to produce something so over the top that people are worthy and willing to pay money. I don't feel
Hmm.
like I would do it justice. And until I have that time, I just don't feel like I'll be creating a paid course. So I'm happy to give it away for free. I would have loved to have this information for free. I still get paid from YouTube. There's still sponsorships. It's not like I'm doing it 100% for free.
Yeah,
Close
yeah,
to close
100%.
to it, but
For the consumers, consumers is basically
yeah,
free.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, well,
So
yeah.
time. Mm.
100%. Yeah, I definitely see that, and it always interests me on how content creators are able to monetize the content and kind of
Mm.
keep it going, even sometimes as full time or even as a side hustle, which
Yeah.
you're doing right now, and it's absolutely great. But I also see still a lot of tech videos. So basically, one of your biggest videos is about the Tesla Model
Yeah.
Y.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you think that kind of content is different from the usual content that you do with architecture, and how do those two audiences basically connect?
They
They don't.
don't. They don't.
Yeah.
But look, it's fun for me. It doesn't really matter what it is, and I
Mhm.
think my audience knows that I'm going to create tech. I'm going to create architecture, and very rarely I'll have something about my life. But I bought a car and I loved it, and I went, hey, maybe the community will like it, maybe they won't. And I know
Mhm.
when I was buying it, I had all these questions, and I went, why hasn't anybody answered these questions, and why hasn't this video been made? So I was on the space, I have the platform, give people the answers that they're looking for them, and let the video do what it's going to do.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one, and I think that niching down too much, at least this is what I've done. So my content is not even for like architects; it's basically just for Enscape users as of now.
Mm.
And after some time, so right now there's not much else that I can show how you can do an Enscape.
Yeah,
So it almost feels like you're recycling content, right?
yeah,
So I definitely am looking forward to kind of broaden up my audience and maybe just do some general content that doesn't have to be super correlated to architecture. So that's why I was interested on how you're combining these two.
yeah. I think that's that exact sentence there, where you're just niching down too much and recycling, is the
Hmm.
reason I didn't pursue any more Tesla videos. Like those 3 videos I posted of 4 did really well, and they
Hmm.
monetized extremely well. And I sat there for a minute
Hmm.
and thought about it and went, there's some good money in this, there's some potential, but I'd be making the same content every day, every week, and I'd hate my
Hmm.
life. I'd burn out. I wouldn't want to do YouTube anymore. So
Hmm.
I'd rather create a variety, lose some people, lose some followers, get some hate comments, and stay on the platform than keep doing the same thing. So branch out wherever you can.
Yeah. I'm also very interested on what like most architects do when they're not doing architecture. So do you have kind of your own like getaways in terms of other areas that you kind of uh, pursue, like hobbies or anything like that? Because I find most of the time architects still kind of do things that are correlated to creativity or architecture in general.
Yeah. I think it's a hard one. Like at a certain point, you work so much that you lose some hobbies. And I hate being asked this question because my answer is boring, but I work so much that it is my life. Occasionally, I'll have the ability to go out, climb a mountain, do a hike, get out into nature, travel. And when those times come, I absolutely zone out and I make sure that I'm fully present. So if I can do those things, that's where I do them. But most of the time, you're just driven by architecture, you're driven by creativity. You're taking photos, you're taking videos, you're sketching ideas, you're looking at real estate, maybe you're looking at development. Like it's all kind of interconnected because it's so ingrained.
Yeah, I also heard that like the real estate market is crazy over there in Australia.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I did work with some real estate firms for rendering
Mm.
a few months ago, and um, the prices of a simple home are insane from what I've seen. Yeah,
Yeah.
but very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that architects can also capitalize on that realm as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of architectural services here in Australia are feasibility studies. So you're
Mhm.
guiding developers if they should buy this property or not and what they should put on the property. So
Mhm.
people are paying you to do what they're trying to do. You have all these skills. You just normally don't have the money that they have and the financial backing. So
Mhm.
eventually, when you make some money, and it's still a long way down the track for me, you can start developing because you have the skills, you know what you're doing, you have the connections, and people are happy to help because you've helped them for so long.
100%. I
Mm,
mean, it's basically you already do the planning and all that. Now you just have to execute the building and
exactly.
maybe have some more skills in terms of sales and marketing. But I definitely feel like there's a lot of room to capitalize on that stuff as well. But also very interested on what you feel are some markets that architects have an advantage of, because I feel like architecture can be used in so many different directions, and
Mm.
you don't always have to follow the conventional path. So, how do you find yourself implementing the skills you have, like the watch, like the architecture skills into the watch brand and onto content creation and all that?
You're absolutely right. When you go through training to be an architect, you learn so many versatile skills. You learn how to draw, you learn how to edit, to create photos, to create
Graphic
videos,
design.
graphic design. You learn it all because
Mhm.
every little bit integrates. You have to create little
Mhm.
logos for buildings that are coming up. You have to create certain, I don't know, marketing packages for different people. You do so many things. And I've seen mates that have gone out and become photographers, become videographers, full-time editors. A generation before me at university, one guy is a huge director in LA. So you can span
Mhm.
into so many different things because it's such a creative discipline. Like you do so many things all at once and you have great skills for the whole life.
100%. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that's definitely what I think a lot, though, because I see a lot of my peers, or at least friends that I had from university, and I think architects in general are just so have these constraints that you have to start drafting and then start designing a little by little and
Mm.
move on to bigger and better stuff. But another thing that I want to ask you about is, did you ever think of going full time with content creation, or is this something that doesn't wouldn't necessarily interest you?
It's a tough one. Um, I love what I do. I love being an architect. I have some of the best clients in the world. They're fully trusting and implicit with their design ideas, and we get to create some of the
Hmm.
most amazing architecture. So for me to let that go would be a huge loss. Even
Hmm.
though I love content creation, I don't think I'd go full time. The money in it, the money's not there, first of all. So you need to support a family, you need to support your lifestyle. That's one. If it took off,
Hmm.
I still think I'd be in the architecture space just because I genuinely love what I do. I love seeing my ideas come to life, and you can only do that one way, and that's by going down the architecture path.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that has pushed me to kind of be more focused on the content creation kind of things is because of the time freedom and location freedom that
Mm.
it kind of allows me to do. And funny enough, I say time freedom because I just get more free time and basically put more work onto that free time,
Yeah.
which ends up not being that free.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the main reason why I asked. But for me, I also miss sometimes to do just some design work, which
Mm.
I'm not doing that much lately. But these projects that you put on the tutorials for ArchiCAD, are those projects that you actually did on the firm, or are they just examples for the videos?
Yeah, so everything that I've done on YouTube has been examples. There's too
Hmm.
much client relations and privacy to kind of go around when you're doing
Hmm.
paid work. So I
Oh
try
yeah.
to keep all private work off. All my
Hmm.
private work's seen on Instagram, so I do showcase it, but I just don't go into the nitty-gritty details. And especially with ArchiCAD, you're using a very sensitive template that has decades of information on it, so you don't really want to be giving that away for free. So
Hmm.
I start with the bare bones and just whatever idea is there and just go with it. It doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to teach skills so people can use it.
Yeah. And how important do you think renders are for architecture firms? Do you
Huge.
feel like that is the main selling points?
Yep. Yeah. I think the more we learn to use renders, the better we're able to portray our ideas. So we think in 3D all the time. We're designing in 3D,
Hmm.
we're thinking, we're moving the model around. We know every
Hmm.
bit about that space. But when you present to a client, they're usually anybody. They could be farmers, they could be doctors, they could be lawyers, they could be, I don't know, accountants, anybody. They could have any job under the sun that just doesn't look at plans at all. They have no idea what they're doing, but they know what they
Hmm.
want. So when
Hmm.
you present them a 2D floor plan, you go, oh, it looks like this, and maybe this will fit here, and let kind of let their imagination do the work, they're not seeing the full value. Whereas when you get some really nice, high quality renders, make sure that their feedback is implemented and their color schemes are implemented, so you're not just giving them your ideas straight away, they can learn to appreciate the hard work so much more. I think with renders being one, VR and AR being a completely different topic, and all of them are helping the architecture space so much.
I think something else, I definitely agree with all your points, but something else that we also have to keep in mind is that today's marketing is very visual because
Mm.
of social media and that. So I think the best visual representation of that architects can show to people that are not familiar with architecture drawings is renders, and that's why I believe they're super important in order to get clients and grow an architecture business. But what do you think are some other ways that architects can get clients and maybe start their career?
Starting a career is one of the hardest things you can do. I think you need to have experience, you need to have a catalog of work to showcase. And
Hmm.
once you have that, it all snowballs. Word of mouth is
Hmm.
one of the most powerful marketing techniques you can use in architecture, because you're committing to not only a firm, but you're committing to a person for a long period of time. You spend a year just talking to your architect, designing, and then you spend another 2 years building the house with them. So word of mouth is by far the most important, making sure your
That's
clients
that's the same
love you.
one I hear always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your clients have to love you. And then you have to keep a very good portfolio of work and a record. So paying extremely good photographers who know what they're doing to go out and capture your finished products is invaluable. Like, you're capturing that forever and you can showcase it to every person that walks in your door.
Hmm. And I always feel like architecture is a bit outdated in terms of the marketing that
Mm.
architects do, because I've never seen like an ad or like a sponsored photo or like a paid ad from an architecture firm. Do you think that architects just look down upon that, or is there just some room that is that a untapped place where architects can capitalize on?
Absolutely. So one of the first things I did when I moved into the marketing area of the firm is just sponsored ads, because I spent so much money on e-commerce that I knew how to run them, and it was just crazy. People started calling all the time. But I think what the problem becomes with sponsored ads is you're targeting too much of a broad audience. You're not targeting very
Mhm.
specific people at the specific time, because it's a huge financial commitment to go and build a house or build a warehouse or do whatever. You're not spending $100 on a course, or I don't know, $500 on whatever. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
Mm.
it's a really tough one to get them at the right time, but it's untapped. It needs the yeah. We need a lot more
Yeah, because
social media with architecture.
what I was thinking as you were saying that is you really are going to be in front of people that are already looking to build a house,
Mm.
and it's hard to actually convince someone to build a house if they don't even have the finances to. So maybe like social media ads wouldn't be as as good, but I think that Google ads,
Mm.
where people actually
Yep.
search for an architect, I
Yep.
think that's where there could be a lot more impact. So it's just, I always think about this stuff because lately I feel like I'm more interested in like the marketing sales
Mm.
kind of stuff rather than
Yep.
just the work itself, since I feel like it's so outdated. And I
Mm.
always try to figure new stuff out. But it's interesting that word of mouth always wins in this
Yeah.
kind of situation.
Well, I think at least in my situation, our clientele is 40 to 70, and
Mm.
people in that demographic aren't sitting on social media all day. They're not looking at Google 24/7. They're mainly talking to their friends. They're talking to people who have done the same thing that they're about to do. But you have to have a long-term marketing strategy in place as well as word of mouth. So you got to target that older generation of 40 to 60 or 70, and then you have to build your audience of that 18, 19, 20, 21 year old and keep them along for the journey, so that when they reach that age and that maturity and they have the financial backing, they remember you. They know who you are. You've helped them along the way. You've guided their architecture inspiration, and then you don't have to pay for a single ad because you've already capitalized on it years ago.
You've built brand basically, so you don't need
Yeah,
to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very
And
important.
do you feel like there's a disconnect between being a young architect and then having that whole different demographic of age from your clients? Do you have trouble with that?
No, I did at the start. When I first started, obviously you're in your early 20s, and they
Hmm.
look down on you like you're their son, and
Hmm.
they think you're a very young child. Which is, look, to be fair, early on you don't know what you're doing. You're learning a lot, so there is some fairness in that comment. But as you
Hmm.
get older, it quickly changes, and the more and more you showcase your ability, the more they get to know you, the trust comes naturally. Um, some of my clients are, yeah, like I said, 50, 60, 70 years old, and they trust me
Hmm.
implicitly, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great here because
Mm.
architects are always complaining about clients, and I think you don't have to deal with that, which is great.
No,
Well, time has flown by. It's been 46 minutes, and this is how long usually the podcast goes on. So, just before we finish, I would love if you can just let the audience know where they find you and where can they connect with you online.
of course. So you can find me on YouTube, just search David Tomic, or you can find me on Instagram, same handle, David_Tomic. There is a Discord group you can join. It's full of architecture students from around the world. The link is in every YouTube video, so you're welcome to join it. Just talk about anything, ask any questions, and just get some help. We're a small community, so we've got to help each other.
100%. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast, David, and hopefully we can collaborate again in the future. And thank you to everyone for watching and listening to this, and I will see you in the next one.
Appreciate it. See ya.